The silent treatment is slowly killing your marriage, and most people don't even realize how much damage they're doing because technically they're not really doing anything, right? They're just staying silent. They're not screaming. They're not throwing things. They're not insulting their partner. They're just going quiet, pulling away, shutting down, avoiding the conversation, acting cold, acting emotionally unavailable. But emotionally, the silent treatment lands like abandonment. In fact, some of the deepest pain I see in relationships is not caused by yelling, it's caused by emotionally disappearing. One partner reaches emotional, you know, climax, and the other partner just kind of vanishes. They just disappear. They stop responding, they stop engaging. They become emotionally unreachable. And what makes this so destructive is that human beings are wired for connection. When we suddenly lose emotional contact with someone we love, our nervous system doesn't interpret that as neutral. It interprets it as danger. And the longer the silence goes on, the more damage starts happening underneath the surface. There's a famous concept in couples therapy created by John and Julie Gottman. It's called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. After studying couples for decades, what they did is they identified four major predictors of divorce: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Those four, they were able to predict divorce over 95% accuracy by looking for those four things. Stonewalling is essentially emotional shutdown. It's when someone withdraws emotionally, shuts down communication, stops engaging, or sometimes they just create emotional distance even during conflict. And what's important is that stonewalling often leads directly to one of the other ones: contempt. Because when people are emotionally separated, what happens? Their minds start building narratives about each other. Human beings are meaning-making machines. It's what we do in our head all the time. What does this mean? This means this, right? We hate emotional ambiguity. So when your partner goes cold and emotionally disappears, your brain starts trying to explain the silence. They don't care about me. I'm not important. They'd rather punish me than work through this. Maybe they don't even love me anymore. Meanwhile, the other person is building their own narrative in their head. They're exhausting. Nothing I say matters anyway. Why do I even bother trying? I can't stand being around them right now. The silence becomes a very fertile ground for resentment because both people are sitting alone with their interpretations instead of actually reconnecting. And eventually those stories harden, and they harden into contempt. Hatred, essentially, right? Contempt is the most dangerous stage because contempt changes the emotional tone of the relationship itself. It creates disgust, eye rolling, emotional superiority, coldness, mockery. The relationship slowly stops feeling emotionally safe and starts feeling emotionally hostile. And once couples get there, repair becomes dramatically harder because people are no longer fighting for connection. They're protecting themselves from each other. Now, one reason people use the silent treatment is honestly manipulation. Let's just say it plainly because I think people dance around this too much. Sometimes people absolutely use silence as emotional punishment. They're hurt, they're angry, resentful, maybe they're emotionally overwhelmed, and instead of expressing vulnerability directly, they try to regain control through withdrawal. It becomes, oh yeah, I'll show you. You hurt me, fine. Now you're going to feel abandoned too. And underneath that is usually a mixture of pain and powerlessness. A lot of vindictive behavior in relationships comes from feeling emotionally helpless. The person doesn't know how to process the hurt directly, so they try to create pain in the other person instead. Bad move. Right? That silence becomes emotional leverage. They want their partner anxious. They want them chasing. They want them obsessing. They want them sitting there feeling guilty and uncomfortable. And here's the crazy thing. Sometimes it works temporarily. The other person apologizes. They even chase harder quite often. They become more compliant. They back down. But does it create intimacy? No, it does not. It creates fear. It creates instability. It teaches the relationship that love can disappear at any moment if conflict happens. And nobody feels deeply emotionally safe with someone who constantly threatens emotional abandonment every time they're upset. Eventually, the partner stops feeling relaxed around you because they're always subconsciously worried that the relationship could emotionally freeze at any moment. And honestly, a lot of people who weaponize silence are emotionally immature. And I don't mean that cruelly. I mean that they literally do not know how to tolerate pain without externalizing it. Healthy emotional processing requires vulnerability. It requires someone saying, hey, that hurt me. I feel rejected. Made me feel unimportant. I feel disconnected. But vulnerable honesty feels weak to some people. So instead, they convert the hurt through this little funnel system they made into a punishment because punishment feels like they're in control again. It feels powerful. But there's another reason that people use the silent treatment that I think deserves a lot more compassion. The one that's not manipulative. The one that deserves understanding, because not everybody who stonewalls is really trying actively with some malintent to manipulate their partner. Sometimes people emotionally shut down because emotional conflict literally overwhelms their nervous system. I had a client once whose mother was incredibly emotionally empathetic growing up. And it sounds wonderful on paper. Oh my God, she can connect with anybody. Except the mother absorbed pain so intensely that she became emotionally non-functional whenever something difficult happened. If somebody was struggling, she spiraled with them. If somebody was hurting, she emotionally collapsed. And what happened, as you may be able to guess, is depression consumed her and eventually consumed the entire house. Fear consumed the house. Emotional overwhelm consumed that house. And eventually things got so bad financially and emotionally that they lost their home. And for this client, negative emotions became neurologically tied to catastrophe, to losing the home. Conflict didn't feel like disagreement. Conflict felt like danger. It still feels like danger to that client to a pretty large degree. It felt like emotional collapse. Conflict felt like instability. It felt like becoming homeless. So whenever arguments happened in adulthood, in his marriage, this client's nervous system immediately screamed, get out, escape, shut down, run. Not because he didn't love his partner, not because he wanted to manipulate anybody, but because emotionally it was simply too damn hard. His body associated conflict with emotional destruction. And I think this is important because the internet has trained everybody to diagnose each other now. Everybody's toxic, everybody's narcissistic, everybody's manipulative, everybody's abusive. And while sometimes those labels absolutely apply, sometimes people are just dysregulated human beings carrying old survival mechanisms into adult relationships. Now, that doesn't excuse the damage. Stonewalling still hurts relationships very deeply, but understanding where behaviors come from matters because solutions depend on understanding the actual problem. Some people need emotional regulation skills. Some people need trauma work. Some people need to learn how to tolerate emotional discomfort without emotionally fleeing the relationship. Now, what should you do instead? This part matters because I don't want people hearing this and thinking that they're never allowed to step away during conflict. Taking a break is healthy. Stonewalling is not. Those are two completely different things. Your nervous system can actually become less capable of productive conversation when your heart rate gets too elevated. Once people become emotionally flooded, they just stop listening accurately anyway. Their brain moves into survival mode. So yes, sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is pause the conversation temporarily. Go regulate yourself. Go for a walk, breathe, pray, meditate, sit outside. Splash some cold water on your face if you have to. Calm your nervous system down. But don't emotionally disappear. Don't leave your partner trapped in uncertainty, wondering if the relationship is emotionally collapsing in real time. Send what I call a white flag, a signal that says, we're still connected even though I need space right now. Right? That little, hey, right? That little white flag. That white flag changes everything emotionally. And it could literally be a text message saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed right now and I need 20 minutes to calm down, but I love you and I want us to come back and try again because we're better than this. That one sentence preserves emotional safety. It reassures your partner that the connection still exists. Or maybe it's walking over quietly before taking space and asking for a hug. Maybe it's saying, I don't know how to talk right now without making this worse, but I don't want to disconnect from you. Heck, for some couples, it could literally be a Google Calendar invite later that night saying, let's revisit this at 8 p.m. after we calm down. The exact method matters less than the emotional message underneath it. The message is this: I'm not abandoning you. I'm regulating myself so I can reconnect with you better. Because healthy relationships are not built by avoiding conflict. If no one's told you this before, let me tell you this right now. Conflict is inevitable. Every couple hurts each other sometimes. Every couple misunderstands each other. Every couple disappoints each other. The real skill is learning how to reconnect after disconnection. That's the skill that predicts relationships' longevity, not perfection, repair. Anybody can emotionally disappear. Anyone can shut down. They can withdraw. They can go silent and wait for the other person to chase them. But emotional maturity is being able to calm yourself without emotionally abandoning the relationship in the process. And if you're somebody who tends to go silent during conflict, I really want you to understand something important. Your partner is usually not reacting to the silence itself, at least not just reacting to the silence itself. They're reacting to what the silence means emotionally. The uncertainty, the emotional distance, the sudden inaccessibility of love, the feeling that the relationship no longer feels emotionally safe or secure. That's why pushing through the silence matters so much. Not perfectly, not immediately, but intentionally. Every time you choose reconnection over withdrawal, you teach your relationship that conflict doesn't have to mean abandonment. And honestly, that may be one of the most important emotional lessons a relationship can ever learn.